Hi, I'm Doc Palmer. I'm the author of McGraw-Hill's best-selling reliability book, The Maintenance Planning and Scheduling Handbook. Maintenance planning and scheduling is a competitive edge for our companies. Maintenance is maintaining, keeping things from breaking. If we're in a rut where we think maintenance is fixing things really fast, we've kind of missed the boat. The maintenance manager's question is, how can we do the proactive maintenance to keep things from breaking in the first place when we have our hands full of reactive maintenance? Planning and scheduling is not the silver bullet, but it certainly helps with that. We want to run planning as a Deming cycle, where plans are not perfect, they're just head starts. That's the trap that most people fall into. They initiate planning to tell craftspersons how to do their job. And for some reason, that doesn't work well. Instead, we just want to give a head start and save the lessons learned in living job plans. So the word planner does us a disservice. We really want to be craft historians. The scheduling also is tricky. We want to fully load schedules to defeat Parkinson's law. And we actually want between 40 and 90% schedule compliance. The purpose of scheduling is not to complete the schedule. So don't set super high schedule compliance. We want to fully load schedules where it's okay to break the schedule. And this word scheduler is a bad word. The word schedule makes you think of a calendar. The word scheduler makes it sound like that's somebody who tells supervisors what to do with their people. We're not doing any of that. A better word for scheduler would be backlog research. We want the scheduler busy digging away in the backlog to come up with a batch of work to give the supervisor to go after it. But it's got to be okay to break the schedule. We don't want to clog up the supervisor in the office going through the backlog, looking for opportunities to combine activities. You're going over here, let's do these 3 jobs. If you're going to tag out on that, let's do these 2 jobs. We want to perform a great service for the supervisor, been doing the backlog research. And that brings us to principle 5 in the scheduling principles, which is the daily schedule. Briefly talk about the philosophy, which we talked about in episode 19. But today we're actually going to show an example of a daily schedule. There's too much churn in a week of maintenance. Some jobs take longer than you thought they might. Some jobs finish quicker. We have fast mechanics and slow mechanics. Sometimes the job just not what you thought it was, and you end up doing something else. We do have new reactive work that breaks in, so you have to reshuffle, and you might pick some jobs you're not going to finish. And with all that going on, the supervisor is in the best place to make a decision of what they would like to do tomorrow. So after lunchtime, the supervisor is looking at today's schedule, seeing how it's going, and trying to figure out what they would like to do the next day. Then after they kind of set that, the way they might think tomorrow might unfold, they get with their operations counterpart and ask, does this look good? And if they can come to some agreement, then the supervisor posts that on their door and in the break room. The supervisor's in the best place to see what's going on today, to figure out what they might be able to start tomorrow. And certainly we want the supervisor to be quick to break the schedule and make that command decision if it's a priority 0 emergency, even maybe a priority 1 that they think they need to go after today. We want the supervisor free to do that. The supervisor would coordinate lockout, tagout on a daily basis. Even though the weekly schedule sort of says what we'd like to try to do, we don't want too many hard dates in that if we can avoid the weekly schedule having hard dates. It's based on what's going on today, what do we think we can do tomorrow? And that's really the daily schedule, up to the supervisor. The supervisor also knows their people. This person's good at this. We want to give them the tricky punk jobs. This person's not very good with that, fans. We want to give them some fan work to build up their experience. The supervisor knows that these 2 people work well together. These other two people don't like each other so much. This person would like to work by themselves, but that's might not a good idea. Maybe that person needs to be with somebody else. And this other person is better if they do work by themselves. This person had a nasty job yesterday. We're going to try to give them a nicer job today, just for the morale and the sake of everybody. So we'll leave that up to the maintenance supervisor as the week unfolds to assign names, to coordinate the daily lockout, tagout, to break the schedule for emergencies, and to keep that going as the week unfolds. So Peters and Waterman, I mentioned that in episode 19, excellent book, 1982. They studied a number of large companies that had been super successful over the years, and they distilled 8 common denominators. And principle number 8 is simultaneous loose-tight properties. Some things are tight, some things are loose. The tight things, you have to do it this way, or you really don't need to be working at this company. The loose things, that's why we hire you, supervisors and mechanics, is to make decisions and stuff. It's like, don't sweat the small stuff, pick your battles. The tight for us in scheduling is we're going to start every crew off with a full batch of work, 100% loaded schedule, and it's okay to break the schedule. That's a tight principle we're going to adhere to. The loose is do the daily schedule any way you want. Supervisors, that's their job, is to manage as we're going toward the objective of the weekly schedule that has given them a goal. But we might not get there. We'll try to get there, but we're heading in that direction. And that's the productivity piece, is the full batch of work. It changes us from, does everybody have something to do, toward we're trying to get a certain amount of work done. That's the weekly schedule. But we want the supervisor to use that weekly schedule, the new stuff that can't wait, and to every day build that weekly schedule. That daily schedule. So let's look at an example of that. So PA, entire screen. Oops, window, and there it is right there. This is actually chapter 7 of the handbook, showing this example. This is back in the early 1990s, just barely onto the computer, starting to get into Excel. We made a grid, and don't get caught up in the technology. The principles are what you want to see from this. We gave everybody every supervisor a pad of this just paper with the names of their crew across the top. So for the book, I actually added the crafts there. Whereas an M is a mechanic, welder, machinist, mechanic, welder, trainee. Machinist is an S, I guess. An H is a helper. Going across the top, those are the crafts. Now, this is the schedule example for Tuesday. So the supervisor is looking at Monday to see how the similar paper grid came out and trying to figure out what they would like to do on Tuesday. And this would be probably right after lunchtime. So these 4 jobs right here are carrying over from the previous day. Those are fairly large jobs on the boiler structure, fabricating a pump shaft. Maybe that's going to carry over from yesterday into today. Vacuum pump carried over from yesterday, and under drains job carried over from yesterday. And the supervisor thinks those are going to take all day for these people here. This first job is split between Barber, who's a welder, and Patterson, that's a helper. So that's kind of how this chart works. Then the supervisor looks at new stuff that we're going to add that we haven't started yet. There's a job dealing with a leak on the unloading arms at our fuel dock. It's actually 3 people, 6 hours each. That would be a mechanic and 2 helpers. And then there's a job on the dock gutters that actually was set up for 2 people for 6 hours each, but the supervisor says, well, I've got people out at the dock. I've got 3 people. Maybe if I put 3 people out there, maybe they could do it in 4 hours each. So we're kind of taking advantage of the people each work 10 hours. They're already going to be out in a certain area, and that would make sense for them to try to pick up that job too. There's some other jobs too. There's a pump impeller job that is planning for 2 people. This is a helper, and this is the machinist. I do like to see estimates like that. Since we work a 10-hour shift, like seeing an 8-hour estimate means the planner's really trying to think about the time estimates. I get nervous if every job is 1, 5, and 8. Each of those jobs, they stuck these people on another 2 jobs, cat eye and under drains, but the supervisor is actually going to take somebody off of this job here for training and pump alignment. They actually wrote another work order for that. And it looks like they picked up a job here, 2 people for 10 hours this full day. They're starting this day, going to another day, but he's going to take this mechanic over here to train this helper here. So playing with the hours a little bit, but we don't want to just see check marks where everybody is. There is an expectation of hours expended on a job. Here's a job for 1 person, piping. It's 2 days, and it's actually for a trainee, so must not be a very technically intense job. And then finally, caustic job. It's going to take a trainee. I suspect that's a leak or something. Yeah, it is a leak. They think that's going to take probably a day and a half. Interesting estimate, 17-hour job. 1 person's on vacation, and we're coming up with 10 hours for each person. So that's what we wanted to do. So the supervisor then, this would be after lunch, putting this together, then would check with their operations counterpart. How does this look? They might move some things around. And the operator might say, well, which jobs do you think you're going to start in the morning? And which jobs do you think you're going to wait for the afternoon? Because that might affect how the operators want to do lockout. And if this is okay, then the supervisor posts this on their door and in the crew area. You would not believe the morale boost this gave. People want to know what they're doing tomorrow. So somebody comes to me, I would say, well, you're a mechanic, probably a mechanical job. Well, what kind of job am I doing? Well, there's the job you're doing. Aha, that's a bad job. I'll call in sick. Well, you only have so many sick days. And I think your imagination is your own worst enemy. Usually everybody likes to know kind of what they're doing. And this could change in the morning when the supervisor comes in. The supervisor is going to might rearrange things if something breaks overnight or if somebody calls in sick or something like that. But as a great morale boost for us, just posting the schedule, it makes us look like we're organized and we're sharing, even though we don't know for sure what we're going to do tomorrow. Some of your mechanics might look at this list before they go home, think about it at night, or maybe before they go get some things ready for it. And it's just a big morale boost. Not a lot of technology in this, not a lot of sophistication. You could easily push this schedule out to people's mobile devices, their cell phones if you're using mobile devices. Push this out to a video screen that's in each room. But the idea is that this is done as the week unfolds on a day-by-day basis. And then the supervisor on Tuesday, since this was made for Tuesday, they might tweak it in the morning depending on what happened overnight. And then they will use this to mark up to start creating Wednesday schedule. So it's every day, tromp through that, and it's not a big deal. But basically chapter 7 of the handbook, and it talks about that. This was the example in the handbook. So thank you for joining me. Thanks for letting me be part of your maintenance family. And you can see some of my other YouTubes, obviously, on this channel, but also check out my website at palmerplanning.com. And also you'll see currently scheduled workshops, and you could access past maintenance articles I've written for magazines and conference presentations I've made. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time.